It's Monday, it's the 16th of June. You're watching ARIRANG, Korea's only global network. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon Gun-young. President Park Dae-chul earlier this morning departed for a week-long visit to Central Asia. Now, the president will seek more business opportunities in the energy-rich region and promote her Eurasia Energy and Infrastructure Initiative. Our Choi Sun is traveling with the president, and she gives us a preview of the presidential trip.
President Park embarks on state visits to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan this week.
The president looks forward to enhancing cooperation with the Central Asian countries by expanding Korean businesses' economic projects in the region and reaffirming trust and ties with the heads of visiting nations.
In Tashkent, the Korean president and her Uzbek counterpart will seek ways to bolster their strategic partnership. There are currently some $8 billion worth of joint projects underway, such as a gas field development and chemical complex construction, and Seoul hopes to go beyond into areas of renewable energy and textiles. President Park, who has proposed an initiative that will link energy and infrastructure in Eurasia, will also visit Samarkand, a city that was at the heart of the Silk Road. In Astana, the Korean leader and her Kazakh counterpart will discuss current projects worth roughly $10 billion, including construction of a thermal plant and petrochemical complex. Seoul will sign a deal to participate in Astana's rail development, with hopes it will lay the groundwork for President Park's Eurasia initiative. There will be talks on the North Korean nuclear issue, since Kazakhstan achieved significant growth after voluntarily giving up its nuclear arms. President Park will be visiting Turkmenistan for the first time as a Korean leader, where she plans to ask the country to support Korean firms seeking to participate in large-scale infrastructure projects in the gas-rich nation. During her 6-day tour, the Korean president also plans to meet with ethnic Koreans living in the three countries and pledge her support for active cultural exchanges with the region. Choi Sun, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, back here at home, Korea's rival political parties are wrangling over whether to go ahead with the Prime Minister designate Chang-keuk's confirmation hearings, and amid the increasingly heated debate over his controversial views and comments on history. Our political correspondent Myung-kil has more.
A motion calling for parliamentary confirmation of the new Prime Minister nominee, Chang-keuk, will be submitted to the National Assembly on Tuesday. Once the request is filed, legislators have 20 days to vote on the appointment. The ruling Saenuri Party has jumped to Moon's defense, saying he needs to be given a chance to be vetted through a confirmation hearing. Party spokesperson Park Dae-chul accused the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, or NPAD, of not giving Moon a chance.
The main opposition bloc is not even giving the nominee a chance to be questioned on stage. Not holding a confirmation hearing is anti-democratic and goes against the people's will.
The ruling party has attacked the opposition bloc, accusing it of using the controversy surrounding Moon to score political points. However, the NPAD, which has been concentrating fire on Moon's questionable comments regarding historical issues, continues to demand his withdrawal.
If Moon stays on, it will be an insult to the people, turn Korea into a pathetic nation, cast doubt on President Park's concept of a nation, and bring ridicule to the Saenuri Party.
In a lecture delivered at his church a few years ago, Moon said Japan's colonization of Korea and the division of the Korean peninsula was all part of God's will. The National Assembly will hold a 3-day interpellation session starting Wednesday, signaling the start of June's extraordinary session. Myung-kil, ARIRANG News.
Now to the deepening crisis in Iraq. As radical Islamist insurgents take strides towards Baghdad, they have released photos of scores of executed Iraqi troops. We warn you, it contains some very graphic photos. Shin Se-min reports.
These are images that seemingly show militants from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, taking aim at captured Iraqi soldiers. The photos, posted on a militant website on Saturday, end with the final image showing the bodies of the captured drenched in blood after being shot. Iraq's chief military spokesman confirmed the authenticity of the photos and said the images showed around 170 Iraqi troops who had been killed. The militants claimed to have executed 1,700 Iraqi soldiers, but the government would not confirm the information. The militant forces are spreading to northwest of the country after taking over a number of key cities, including Mosul, the second largest city in the country. The Iraqi government has reinforced defenses around the capital. However, a series of explosions inside Baghdad killed over a dozen and left more than 40 injured. And according to a U.S. military official, around 150 U.S. Marines have been sent to Baghdad to help bolster security at the U.S. Embassy. Most of the staff are being evacuated to safer parts of Iraq or to neighboring Jordan. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel ordered the USS George H.W. Bush to the Persian Gulf on Saturday, raising the possibility of imminent U.S. airstrikes. U.S. President Barack Obama, however, said on Friday that any strike in Iraq will have to be coordinated with a thorough plan from Iraq's political leaders to set aside their sectarian differences. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
And as the violence in Iraq intensifies, the world is worried not only about the fate of that country, but also about global oil prices. Instability in the nation stands to affect global supplies and raise prices as it has already begun. Our Connie Lee with more.
The worsening crisis in Iraq is causing concerns in the international community about oil output and oil prices. At production of about 3.3 million barrels a day, Iraq is the world's second biggest oil producer after Saudi Arabia in the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. And according to the International Energy Agency, the country accounts for roughly 4% of global oil production. Making matters worse, OPEC says that global consumption will increase sharply in the last quarter of 2014. And the organization plans to produce more to meet demands. Worries of a civil war breaking out in Iraq have startled markets and pushed the international benchmark to a 3-month high above $110 a barrel.
We are still very sensitive what goes on in the Middle East. There's no question that spills over, and that's reflected in the Brent price usually. And it's a global market, so everything is interrelated. So what goes on there affects us also.
Surging oil prices could also have an impact on Korea. According to the Korea National Oil Corporation, Iraq is the nation's 5th largest oil supplier, making up nearly 8% of its imports. The 100 or so Korean companies operating in Iraq are watching the turn of events closely. An emergency meeting in Seoul on Sunday, attended by the Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy, and officials from state-run and private sector firms, concluded that Korean companies in Iraq have not yet been affected by the unrest. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Now, the Korean government is all too aware that the nation's low fertility rate stands as a clear and present threat to future economic growth. Measures have been implemented to address the problem, but recent data suggests that their efforts are not working too well. Connie Kim has the details.
Low employment rates, smaller incomes, and difficulties finding places to live. It's a recipe that has resulted in Korea having one of the lowest fertility rates in the OECD. Data recently released by the World Factbook produced by the Central Intelligence Agency estimates Korea's total fertility rate at 1.25, which represents the number of children a mother is expected to have over her lifetime. Topping the list were the African countries of Niger, Mali, and Burundi. Israel, Mexico, and France had the highest rates among the OECD. Now, experts say the low birth rate in Korea comes from a combination of factors.
The low fertility rate can be seen among married couples and those who are not married. Among the unmarried, high youth unemployment rates and low incomes are the major reasons for putting off marriage. Among married couples, the financial hardships associated with raising kids act as a deterrent from getting pregnant.
Last year, 67% of the $14.1 billion spent by the Korean government on raising the nation's fertility rate was funneled into support for childcare. Yang says there is more that can be done.
In 2009, France poured in about 4% of its yearly budget to tackling the low birth rate, while Korea spent only about 1%.
Experts say the low birth rate will ultimately lead to a decrease in the working population, resulting in a slowdown in production and a reduction in consumption, which could bring down Korea's economic growth rate down to about 1.7% in the next 20 years. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Well, in recent years, Korea's large construction firms have enjoyed a robust rise in overseas orders, while their smaller competitors struggle to make do despite government support measures. Now, according to a report by the Korea Institute of Finance, overseas construction orders won by local small and medium-sized enterprises plunged by nearly 35% to $3.6 billion last year, from over $5.5 billion back in 2009. Now, it was a decisively different story for big conglomerates in the construction market over that same very period. They secured combined orders worth $65 billion last year, which is up 33% from 4 years earlier. Now, experts say it is becoming harder for small builders to secure orders due to their low financial credit ratings, and they add that the polarization poses a major threat to smaller companies.
When the latest news meets the latest business stories, we give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Business Today with Moon Gon-young. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
Well, in an effort to convince more global enterprises to set up their headquarters right here in Korea, the government has announced plans to provide a wide range of incentives to foreign investors. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said Monday that a new set of revisions to facilitate foreign investment will take effect 40 days from now. Well, they include tax breaks, a streamlined process of taxation and immigration benefits. The Korean government will impose an income tax rate of 17% for all foreign employees at the global headquarters of enterprises that are based here in Korea, regardless of their income. Well, foreign engineers will be eligible for tax breaks of up to 50%, and the maximum visa duration will be extended to 5 years from the current 3. Now, if you have a smartphone or a tablet PC, chances are, like me, you depend on its camera to capture very special moments in your life. And more of the world's smartphones are depending on Korean-made camera modules to provide that opportunity. Well, market investigation organization Research in China says that the market share for Korean tech firms in complementary metal oxide semiconductor or CMOS camera modules reached a combined 50% last year for the first time ever. Now, since 2011, Korea's LG Innotek has led the global market with a nearly 17% market share. Now, Samsung Electronics or Electromechanics and Taiwan's Lite-On Technology round out the top 3, and global shares rose of CMOS, camera modules rose from $11.5 billion back in 2012 to $13.7 billion last year. And in a developing story, the European Union will partner with Korea to realize an even faster mobile network, the so-called 5G. Well, the Wall Street Journal reports that the major joint effort is set to be announced this Monday, with the goal of reaching a united vision by the end of next year. The EU had been lagging in mobile technology since its heyday of the 90s, when it led the industry with the GSM standard. Korea is, of course, famous for being one of the most wired countries in the world, with a mobile penetration rate of more than 100%. The Seoul government in January had forecast it would devote more than $1.5 billion over the next 7 years towards realizing a 5G network. Now, the Park Dae-chul administration has made deregulation one of the cornerstones of its plan to revive the Korean economy. And it stands to reason then that the president's pick to be her next finance minister is on the same page. First, here's her Kim Ji-yeon.
Finance Minister nominee Choi Kyung-won says one of his top priorities, if confirmed, will be to ease financial regulations. It's a pledge that falls right into the Park Dae administration's drive toward deregulation in the financial sector and housing market. Choi compared the current situation in the housing market to the middle of winter, when people lack vitality and their activities dwindled to a minimum. The nominee says current regulations are not helping. Choi said they don't address the primary problems and that they were imposed years back when the market was flourishing. If approved by the National Assembly, Choi is expected to make a push to break down some of the barriers for home buyers, including those that put a limit on the amount of loans people can borrow from lenders, depending on their financial conditions.
In order to ease the burden for home buyers, I will ease loan-to-value and debt-to-income rules that are currently putting the brakes on the housing market.
Choi Kyung-won says the government's main focus should be on reviving the Korean economy and promoting the happiness of the people. He has so far refrained from commenting on the strengthening local currency, calling it a sensitive issue that must be dealt with more scrutiny. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
So President Park Dae-chul replaced her finance minister with a 3-term member of parliament and close policy confidant in a cabinet reshuffle last week. Of course, this in the aftermath of a ferry disaster that killed more than 300 people. What does the president have in mind with regards to the economy for the remainder of her term, and what can we expect from the new economic team? Let's get some analysis. For that, Dr. Yang Jin-seok joins us live in the studio. Dr. Yang is, of course, a professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, welcome to the program.
Nice to be here.
Right. Let's try reading into the president's pick to head her new economy team. We know that President Park has been placing extra emphasis on getting the recovery or the economy back on track to recovery since taking office last year, but especially in the wake of April's ferry disaster. So her pick as a new finance minister, what does the president have in mind?
Okay, I think it's a bit of a paradox, but she's looking for somebody who's independent but also thinks like her. And I think in that sense, Mr. Choi Kyung-won is a very good candidate. He's served as a member of parliament, so he's used to getting around the gridlock in the National Assembly. Mm-hmm. He's also served as the Minister of Knowledge Economy during Lee Myung-bak's administration, and that's going to play a crucial part in her 3-year economic plan because she's interested in innovative economy, and the Ministry of Knowledge Economy is now the Ministry of Trade and Industry, but it also incorporated some aspects of the Ministry of Science and Technology, especially the research and development. So he's probably the best person to be in charge of her 3-year program right now. So
do we foresee a change in the economic policy of the country?
Okay, well, compared to Hyun Oh-seok, the previous minister, he seems to, Mr. Choi seems to be a lot more forceful personality. He's a lot more active. So maybe he'll play a bigger role in publicizing what President Park wants. Also, there's probably going to be a change in policy. I think he's going to take a more active stand on expansionary fiscal policy, deregulation policy, the innovation policy, but we'll have to see. According to the latest reports, the Ministry of Finance originally planned to announce the policy goals for the next half of the year in late June, but they apparently moved that schedule to early July so that the incoming minister can have some input in it.
Right, right. So Mr. Che definitely has big challenges ahead of him to stimulate domestic demand as well as create more jobs, right? What about, you briefly touched upon the monetary policy, and there have been speculations that he may try to lower the interest rate, which has been, steady for the past 13 months at 2.5%. Now, in that case, he'll have to come in conflict with the governor of BOK, Bank of Korea, Lee Ju-yeol.
Yeah, the Bank of Korea has seemed to have been giving some signal that they're going to consider raising the interest rate because they're afraid that if the growth is what they thought it would be last year, then there might be some inflationary pressures. But right now, the Korean growth is running lower than last year's forecast, and the President as well as the Mr. Che wants to have a very expansionary policy, I think. So they will probably consider lowering the interest rate a bit more than they would have in the past. But also, Mr. Choi has mentioned that the Bank of Korea and Ministry of Finance has their own separate roles to play, and they make independent decisions. So I don't think it's going to be a very hard pressure. My personal expectation is that the interest rate will remain at the same level unless something really changes in the next few months.
Right. Let's talk about some borrowing or lending regulations that we have had for a few years now. The LTV loan-to-value ratio and DTI debt-to-income ratio. Of course, these were put in place to, I suppose, regulate household debt. And now, Mr. Che Kyung-won has told reporters over the weekend that he thinks that those regulations should be eased.
Okay. Well, the LTV is loan to value. That means when you get a loan, you can only get a certain percent of the collateral as the loan. This was actually first designed to limit speculation in apartments during the early 2000s when people thought that there was a speculative bubble in the real estate market, especially around the Gangnam area. Debt to income ratio is almost the same thing. The bank will not loan you any money beyond a certain percent of your annual income. Now, the problem is that the Korean real estate market is right now
sluggish, to say the least.
Very sluggish, and they're looking at this extra kick. If they lower this ratio, perhaps people will buy more houses. I personally have some doubts about that. Usually, I'm very much in favor of getting rid of these type of regulations. Usually, the banks will not give excessive loans because they're afraid of getting more bad loans. But in this case, because Korean financial institutions do not have a very good track record of maintaining healthy loans, I'm probably in the minority on this, but I'm not quite sure about lowering the LTV and the DTI at this point. I think they'll be better served by standard macroeconomic policies, at least for now.
Right, right. So definitely something that the Deputy Prime Minister nominee for Economy and Finance Minister needs to take very cautious steps on in changing or devising those regulations.
Yeah, actually, I am not quite sure if the lowering the percentage of LTV and DTI would work. Because, well, it worked in the past because people thought that the housing prices would be going up, and if they take an extra loan and buy an apartment, they would realize some capital gains. I think that expectation is not there right now. So even if you lower that percentage so that people can get more loans, I'm not sure if it will flow into the housing sector.
Right, right. So with that, I don't know, with the easing of these regulations, with a worse household debt? Because it's already huge right now.
Well, I think people usually classify it as just below the danger level, because if you look at the household debt as a percentage of disposable income, Well, it's high. It's about 135%, but the United States and United Kingdom have higher rates higher percentages right now. So we think of it as just below the danger level. But I think the government may be trying to take a calculated risk so that if they worsen the dangers on household debt a little bit, but manage to reinvigorate the real estate market, then that will probably be a plus, a gain for the economy overall. But as I mentioned, I'm in a minority on this, but I have my doubts on whether that lowering percentage will work.
Will work as in it will work as effective.
Revitalizing the real estate market.
The real estate market. Well, so for the remainder of President Park's term, I'm sure economy will be at the top, very top of her agenda, and perhaps this new economy team coming in could really boost the livelihoods of the Korean people.
Well, one of the interesting things, I think, one of the really hopeful things is that Mr. Che seems to be a much more forceful personality than Mr. Che. And he also has a lot of expertise in innovative economy because he served as a minister of knowledge economy. He might be a very effective person that we can use right now.
Well, that's all the time we have, and thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you.
And that's your business today on this Monday. Thank you for watching, and join us again at 6 p.m. Korea time.